We can start now. So welcome everyone. We are very excited and happy to have you join our 8th Morocco AI webinar of this AI webinar series. A brief intro about Morocco AI and who we are. So Morocco AI is a initiative led by AI experts in Morocco and abroad. These experts are professors, researchers, and AI professionals. The mission of Morocco AI is to promote AI growth in Morocco and build a strong collaborative AI community both locally and abroad. We seek to foster excellence in AI education, research, and encourage the innovative spirit. From this perspective, we have launched different activities such as AI webinar series that aims to bring Moroccan AI researchers to present and share their work with the community, AI O'Clock podcast and study groups that will be released this week by Sunday. Last but not least, Journal Hidden Club, where we discuss research papers. Join us on Slack to know more about our activities. For today's webinar, Ihsan and I will be your hosts. Ihsan and I are PhD candidates at Mohammadia University and International University of Rabat. And we are also organizing our first Morocco AI conference on bridging the gap between research and industry. This conference will be fully virtual, free, and will take place in the 21st to 23rd December. We will be hosting great keynote speakers, panels, hands-on workshops, data challenges, and many more. And we will give you more info about the speakers at the end of the talk, so stay with us. And also don't hesitate to join us and submit your previously published, completed, or ongoing or planned work. In addition, we highly encourage junior PhD students to submit research proposals. You can access the call for paper on our website. And the good news is that you can submit your papers until the weekend, and we will have a breakout room for your question about the call for paper. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and join us on Slack to be notified about our upcoming webinars and other activities. Our last webinar tackled Vision Transformer, a new way of approaching computer vision tasks. If you have not watched it yet, please find the link in our website. Today's webinar is on boosting low resource languages technology with frameworks, presented by Professor Karim Bouzoubaa. In this webinar, Professor Karim Bouzoubaa, a full professor at the Mohammadia School of Engineers and a Fullbright visiting professor at Binghamtom University in USA, and he holds a master and a PhD from Laval University in Canada and the artificial intelligence and multi-agent systems. He contributed to the release of Amin platform for the development of intelligent systems. He has published 2 books and moreover than 100 book chapters, journal and conference papers on different aspects of intelligent systems and language processing. And since 26, he is focusing on NLP field. His credentials have been recognized in many ways. He did a research group in his institution, being invited as a keynote speaker as well as a visiting professor. And he reviewed projects and papers, organized local and international events. He participated also in the creation of local Arabic NLP association, as well as participate in local, regional, and international funded projects. Thank you, Professor Karim Bouzoubaa. The floor is yours. You have 30 to 40 minutes for your presentation. Professor Karim Bouzoubaa, the floor is yours.
Right. Thank you. First of all, Eid Mubarak Saeed to everyone. I would like also to thank the organizing committee of the Morocco AI for giving me this opportunity to share with you our experience on the work we have been doing in our team, especially in the development of frameworks. So the presentation is entitled Boosting Low Resource with Languages, Technology with Frameworks. So, I mean, implicitly, of course, we're going to talk about Moroccan Darija and Arabic also. But I'm going to talk, of course, about a little bit to introduce about AI and NLP as one of the main fields of AI. So I will start with this Sorry. So I will start talking about a little bit about the history, but very briefly, since I have only 40 minutes. But the talk about the frameworks, the real talk about frameworks and the conclusion, how to boost, etc., will come really at the end. So I'm going to start with the history of AI and explain how AI and NLP are really have been combined during the history of AI. And then we'll see some of the trends about NLP to justify why it is important to talk about frameworks and to work using frameworks today. Before, giving some of the advices how we can boost a language considered as a low resourced language, or as we will see, an in-between resourced language. So as you know, you probably have heard, and all of you, you are related to AI to some extent. All of you know the Turing test, and if you see Turing test is itself, by definition, it is completely related to NLP, because the Turing test has been defined as a conversation framework. And we talk about conversation, and today we're talking about chatbots. It is directly related to the NLP field. So really, AI has started its very beginning thoughts with with NLP. Also, if you remember, historically speaking, the first AI researchers, their goal was to develop a machine translation work to translate from the Russian to the English because of the Cold War in the 60s and 70s. And you do know, of course, the great work that has been done with IBM about Jeopardy game, but the developed Watson, which is directly related to QA or deep QA systems. So the history of AI is really greatly related to big events about NLP. And today, most of these big companies are mainly working. Of course, they are working on many other fields of AI, but mainly they are working with NLP because, with the advent of big data and internet, we are living in a world that contains too much text, and this text has to be processed. And without NLP, this text, of course, cannot be processed. It's not only the fact that we have data, but the fact that we have unnoted data, and this is the main problem. It's not database kind of data, but it is more unnoted data, and this data has to be processed to translate it or to convert it into customer services. So briefly speaking, this is a definition I'm giving you, is one of the latest definition given by Stanford University about NLP. So it involves teaching machines to interpret, classify, manipulate, and generate language. So we see it is both at the analysis and at the generation processes in both directions. With this of handwritten rules or statistical techniques. So all of you folks, you are more eager to understand machine learning, deep learning, and stuff like that. But we have to understand what we did use as previous generation handwritten rules, but this is not something that has to be put in on the side. It is always keep in mind that rules sometimes can help in achieving the task. And Stanford is also noticing this fact that we use either handwritten rules or statistical techniques to the recent adoption of generative models and deep learning. And of course, many importantly, NLP has become an integral part of our lives. So who today is not using Google Translation, or is not using searching, or is not using different applications in text generation, machine translation, QA, etc. So it is really part of our life. So as I've just said, some examples in our daily life, the use of real NLP. It's no more academic NLP, but it's, I mean, industrial and real NLP with the spell checkers or with the QA parts of Google or machine translation, etc. So, or even chatbots today. So what are the international trends about NLP? So if we pay attention at the 10 largest companies in the world by market capital, let's talk a little bit about finance. If you see in the 80s, you can see only you have IBM and AT&T that are part of these top 10 companies that are related to AI. But you can see that within after decades after decade, you can see that in 2020, how can you see that we have 7 out of 10 most largest companies in the world are AI and NLP related companies, which means that if we're talking today about company, we are talking about industry, academia, money. I mean, job market is full of jobs about NLP. So it is really a great part of our daily life, of our jobs, of our many things. It is really part of the trend. If you pay attention also, you can see that the title when I talk a little about NLP jobs. If you see the AI job postings in the United States by skill clusters in the from 2013 to 2020, you can see that machine learning is on top, AI is on top, and then neural networks. However, let us mention that when we talk about machine learning, AI, and neural networks, those are techniques. This is not a special field. But if we pay attention to the first field in AI that has jobs, is really NLP. Then comes robotics, and then comes visual recognition, etc., etc. So NLP is really at the top of the job market today, all over the world, or especially, I mean, the United States. To give you an example, talking about the chatbot industry, so the market value of the global chatbot industry is projected to grow from 2.6 billion to 9.4 billion by 2024. So it's really, we have money over there, and the market is open. So this is just a brief introduction about the history, the importance in our daily life, and the trends internationally speaking. I mean, it's really something that we live everywhere. And I mean, what we are going to present to our future generation depends on what we are going to process and we're going to develop today. So what's the link now? Let's focus on the Arabic dialects, etc. in comparison to, I mean, those different international trends mainly focus on the English language, as you may know, and sometimes about for the Mandarin, which is the most used language in China. Let's take a look about our focus, which is Arabic. So the top 10 languages used in the web, in terms of, as you can see in the title, in terms of number of internet users. So you can see that Arabic really comes at the 4th position in terms of number of users, right? Not a number of, we're not talking about the content, but we're talking about the number of users. So Arabic comes at the fourth position. Of course, if you see both, as I just said, English and Chinese are the most used, then you have Spanish, because of the reasons you know, and of course then comes the Arabic language, and then comes all the others. So French, as you can see, is very far from the Arabic language. Now, if you pay attention and try to assess what's the Arabic digital content, as you can see, digital content, if I count, I think it's in the 11th position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's in the 11th position, as I just said, in terms of digital content. Of course, as you can see, pay attention here that English comes at the very first position with 62% of all the digital content on the internet, right? But when we jump to the second position, you can see that there is a great difference. So with 1.2, if you compare it with 7.4, we are not very far from it. But of course, when we compare all the other languages with English, of course, no way, no comparison. But in all cases, let's say that in terms of Arabic content, in terms of digital content, Arabic is at the 11th position. Now let's focus again on the Moroccan language, or the Darija. So you can see that we have very interesting statistics here. We are almost 36 million people. We have 43 million people with a mobile subscription. Internet users, we are 22. We have 17 million active social media users, and we have also users using the mobile as a peripheral. So in terms of internet users, we have quite interesting statistics. When you pay attention to now digital content, of course, it was quite difficult to assess the whole digital content of all dialects, but we did a yes, this one you can find it. I don't remember what's the link or the reference, but it's available. You can see here that by November 2020, Facebook is at the first position, and then comes YouTube, and all the others are really very far from all the others. So we as Moroccans, we mainly use Facebook and YouTube, as you can see here, the statistics. Now we have made this table. You can find it in one of our papers. You can see that we made a scrapping of most of what exists in Facebook and YouTube related to Moroccan digital content. And you can see very interesting statistics. You can see that we both use the Arabic script, and we use also what we call the Romanized or the Latin scripts. Of course, they are different, but let's call it Romanized for the moment. So we use both the Arabic script and the Romanized. And when you use Arabic script, we write so either MSA, or sometimes Moroccan dialect, or sometimes we mix between the two, right? When we use the Romanized script, we write the Moroccan dialect, the what we call today the Arabizi, and we use it, of course, to write the French, English, Spanish. Of course, here we didn't pay attention to the code switching feature, but you can see that. But if you see MDA, if you sum what we write in MDA, Moroccan dialect, 34, and you add to it 40, most of the Moroccans, so 73, most of the Moroccans prefer to write using the Moroccan dialect. You know the challenges we are facing, morphological richness. I'm not going to explain. You might be aware and familiar with these definitions or challenges. Orthographic ambiguity, dialectal variation. Even within Morocco, we have dialectal variation. We have orthographic inconsistency. This is one of the most important features or challenge we're facing in dialect, because even if in MSA we do have a reference, but in dialect we have no reference. That's it increases the challenge. We have, of course, the resource poverty, but I want to put a question mark here. When we talk only about Arabic, and unnoted corpora of text are quite plentiful. We do have some of them, right? But when it comes to dialect, here is the problem. So we can say that Arabic can be considered today as I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Arabic processing, but we can consider Arabic today, I mean MSA, as an in-between language, while dialect is still considered as a low-resourced language. And you know the challenge we are facing, of course, in the OCR to recognize because of the calligraphy of Arabic. It's quite difficult, and not a lot has been done on OCR. So these different challenges creates a particularly challenging situation for Arabic dialect for both MSA and dialect NLP research. We still have many problems to fix. Some directions and efforts have been done. We would like to empower Arabic speakers with many services, customer services such as information retrieval, summarization, machine translation, so on and so forth. And of course, it has been a great interest in Arabic in the last 1 or 2 decades. I mean, maybe everything has started after the 9/11, 11 September, yeah, 9/11 or 11 September 2001. That was really the trigger of all what the effort that has been made so far. So in terms, you have a bunch of resources that have been developed for Arabic, GigaWorks, Parallel Corpora, Tree Banks, etc. So we have really, I mean, plentiful of resources that are available for MSA. If you have a survey about what's going on about Arabic NLP, I can refer you to a very interesting paper, NLP in the Arab world, published in Communications of ACM. Very interesting work. And this is, if you want to copy this link, you can have a survey about Arabic NLP. So as a summary of what I have said concerning Arabic and dialect, so we still have English at the top, and Arabic is considered as an in-between language, while we have plenty of low-resourced languages such as different dialects. We have also much low-resourced language, which is the Amazigh language, and of course we have many others. And we are facing many challenges that you PhD students, researchers, everyone related to NLP, we are invited to work on these challenges. So now, how to face these challenges? That's the question. What are the different ways? What are different methodologies? And of course, let's talk a little bit about Arabic NLP and what has been done. So we can divine the history of Arabic NLP in 3 periods, as you can see. So from the 80s to 2000, it was, of course, the rule-based approach. Mainly, the work was done only on MSA, and the most important company was Safar company. I don't know if you all know it, in Egypt. And they did quite interesting work about morphological analyzers, syntactic parsers, etc. Now, because of the event of 9/11, the Western world was interested to work on the Arabic language, and mainly the machine learning. The machine learning approach was used during that period. And we have seen now not only what I consider as basic services, but now applications such as machine translation, speech recognition, etc. And then from 2010, now I can say that all over the Arabic world, I mean, I don't know any Arabic word not interested or where there is no work about Arabic NLP. Most of the Arabic countries today, to the best of my knowledge, all of them are working on Arabic NLP. And of course, as you know, deep learning is used by far in comparison to the different approaches used before. And of course, more dialects have been considered. And of course, to face the problem of the noisy content we need to process from internet. So all this means that we have, during this period, an increase in Arabic language resources and processing tools. Now, but as I explained before, we need to do more, right? So what's the situation? So in general, PhD students or researchers work on some given part. So either they develop an individual tool or they develop a specific resource, right? So we end up at the end with one individual tool without the bridge with any other tool. Some others have proposed to use toolbox, which can be considered as a set of separated tools. So from now, if you see, I'm going to start combining between NLP and software engineering. So after some tools and resources are either individual, separated from all over the world, some of them are provided as a toolbox. Some others are provided as pipeline tools, so a set of adjacent tools, which means the output of one tool is considered or used as the input of the next one, so on, etc. Right? It's a sort of black box. Sometimes you have platforms which are interoperable tools with homogeneous structure. And sometimes you do have framework. What does it mean? It means, what do we mean exactly by frameworks? We have different tools. You don't have only one. You have all these tools are structured within a given layer. They are not structured only as a pipeline, but they are structured according to the NLP or to the linguistic parts of the language. In addition, the framework is used not only as a tool, but it could be used also to develop other tools, which means it comes as an API. You are already aware of, probably many of you have already used this, but without knowing exactly what's the difference between this and that. Because of course, when you develop an individual tool, it's not the same as developing a framework. Believe me, it's completely different in terms of software engineering. So if you want to boost a language, if you want to provide more services, so no way, you need to have frameworks, because this helps a lot to boost your language, the technology in your language, the different services, etc. And I'm going to show you how. So the objective is to eliminate the need to develop every time from scratch. And the effort, as has been said, as I said, is put both on the NLP and the software engineering part. This problem has already been tackled by other languages, and of course, mainly the English language. And some frameworks appeared maybe 2 decades ago. The most known one is GATE. GATE stands for General Architecture for Text Engineering, which is a framework developed in University of Sheffield, UK. Then you have, I think most of you already know Stanford Core NLP. You have UMA, you have DK Pro from Germany, etc. In 2010, one specific workshop was organized, and it was dedicated specifically to NLP frameworks, because at that time now they saw the importance of talking and standardizing what is a framework, how to organize the work within frameworks. If you want to know also more about frameworks, I'm inviting you to read this interesting paper of Imad Zitouni and Baikel, Combining Natural Language Processing Engines. It's a known book of Imad Zitouni and Baikel. The book is called Multilingual NLP Applications from Theory to Practice. And more recently, most of you are familiar with NLTK, link pipe. Some of you already use OpenNLP. It depends what is your programming language. Which one do you prefer? NLP is used with Java, NLTK is used with Python, etc. And today you have in Europe, you have a big platform called ELG, European Language Grid. And I'm inviting you to go to this link because the primary goal is to offer or to provide a platform for language technologies in Europe. So it contains not only Arabic or English, but it contains, the situation is quite different in the USA because you have only one language. But in Europe, we have more than, I could say, very easily 30 languages. So they do face the problem of translation, of language technology, etc. So they have this grid, which is a European platform where they put all the different language services within this grid. Now, what's the situation about Arabic NLP? So we have several tools, POS taggers, morphological analyzer, etc. And we have a limited number of what we call infrastructure. Those that I know personally, and I mean, we work on this for more than 20 years, so I know pretty much all what's going on in this field. So you have ATKS, which is Arabic Toolkit service from Microsoft, but I think it is no longer a project. I mean, because it's a web service project, when you call the web service, you have no answer over there. You have RNLP, which was used as a project in UK. I don't remember the university, but I mean, it's no longer also a toolkit. You have Arabic tools, you have Adawats, and you have some platforms, or even more, not platforms, but you have also frameworks. You have Camel tools from New York University, Abu Dhabi, and Madamira also. You have Farasam from Qatar, and you have some Safar. Probably you have already heard about it, which is our tool in Mohammadia school. So briefly speaking, Safar is Java based, but today we are offering it as a REST API, and we do process both MSA and Moroccan dialect. Madamira is Java based. It can process both MSA and Egyptian dialect. You have Farasa and you have Camel tools. So all of them provide a set of tools, etc. Here I'm putting 3 dots because the list is very long in comparison to what we have over there. So here it gives us an idea how we consider that Safar outperforms all the others in different directions in terms of tools, in terms of resources, in terms of maintenance, and in terms of flexibility exploitation, because we are providing it as a REST API, so you can have access to it either from Python or whatever. So how is the infrastructure? So as I said before, a framework should be a layered structure with the use of API. So you have the basic layers, morphology, syntax, and semantics. You have the resources, so corpora, lexicon, and you have also techniques, which could be either statistical-based techniques or rule or dictionary-based techniques. And of course, then you develop your application. So you see the importance of having a framework is that you don't put as an application everything inside, but you know that you have the modular structure of your application. It respects the different layers of a language, and even the techniques. You can change the technique if you want to change from one machine learning method to another one. You can without touching any other thing from all the other layers or components. So to talk about a little bit or quickly about Safar. So it's an NLP framework for Arabic and Moroccan textual documents. Safar stands for Software Architecture for Arabic. So the philosophy, we are not developing everything, but we integrate what we found as available. And of course, we integrate not only tools, but also language resources. And we develop tools, I'm going to show you some of them, when others are not available or are not satisfactory. And it could be exploited both by IT people or by non-IT people. So here is the architecture, which follows the architecture of a framework. So we have morphology, syntax, and semantics. We have the different resources, lexicon and corpora, and we have tools, and we have applications. And the client application is completely outside all the framework, and then you can exploit all what you have here, either from the API using your Java language, or from the web application, or from web services. For instance, if you see the basic surfaces, you have morphology, syntax, etc. So as stemmers, we have maybe more than 7 or 8 stemmers inside. We have a list of phonological analyzers, also I think three syntactic parsers, etc. And we have developed our own tools. So for instance, Safar POS, Safar Limitizer, etc. So we have integrated from the others that we of course, we integrate only all what is available. I mean, we respect the commercial and the license part of it, but also we develop our own tools. So here it gives you pretty much all what has been developed. I think it's more than 50 modules. So I mean, if you want to develop your own application, Arabic NLP, you can use NLTK. But NLTK, how many tools do you have over there? You can use OpenNLP, but how many tools you have? You can use also Farasa. But if you use Safar, you do have Farasa inside. You do have Madamira inside, and you have all the others that you can find interesting in NLTK. You would find them also. We have also many resources. I mean, I have very few times I have seen frameworks providing also the possibility to have access to resources, and all of them are given for free. You can go to the website and see either the resource in XML, LMF, or the LMF for lexical resource for lexicons, and TEI for corpora. We have also, this is only the beginning, we have just started the first PhD in first PhD student who graduated last year or this year, I don't remember. And we have a bunch of resources and utilities about how we can process the Moroccan Darija content. So if you go to this site, arabic.mi.ac.ma/safar, you can see the website. Very important. So now we have released the 3rd version, but we are on the process we are working right now on the 4th version that I'm going to show you some sides of them also, of it. And what is more important, I consider now, talking about all of you Moroccans, I think the project is open to any contribution. It does not belong to anyone. We are also working on to respect the license of everyone, but it is open to all the contributions to help us not to waste time, because as I mentioned before, we are really far from what has been done in Chinese, in English, etc. So if we don't help each other from the use of a framework, it's a good starting point if we can put all our contributions, and everyone can also take advantage of using the contributions of all the others. So it is open to anyone interested to put its own tool, its own resource, to give them the opportunity to be used by all the others. I'm going to give you here some examples. So you can see, you open the menu, you click on Safar Web, you click on the menu, you are given this one. So this one is the web application that non-IT people can use. So for instance, I can type some sentence here, you click, this is the stemmer, you choose your stemmer. So it's not necessary to use only one, but you can use multiple of them. This is an example of the normalizer. You know, we are when processing the what is called user-generated text from the internet, you have too much noisy, so you can normalize your text. You can delete the different things you have that you don't want to process. To keep only, for instance, you want to delete the punctuation marks. You want to delete the non-Arabic letters. You can normalize, process your text. This is how you can choose different stemmers. You don't have only one, but you have different stemmers. And what is interesting, because different stammers and different tools are integrated from one level, then you can benchmark within Safar itself. It's not necessary to go outside Safar to benchmark, but you can do the benchmark inside. So you give them some corpus, and because we have already integrated many tools, then you can benchmark and choose then the tool that suits your needs. You can have access, as I said, to dictionaries. So for instance, you type Hasoub, for instance, and here we are looking for Hasoub in what is called معجم اللغة العربية المعاصرة. And you can see it gives you the definition, etc., the root, etc., from this dictionary. But you can see now, if you try to access the word Hasoub from Al-Wasit, معجم al-Wasit, which is quite a very old dictionary, you have no answer, because Hasoub was no longer used, was not used at that time. You can, as I said, okay, as I said before, this is the web interface, but then you can use your API with a Java program. You can normalize exactly as I did before, calling the different services. I'm not going to explain. I mean, the code is not the target today. This is how you can check if it is here either Moroccan dialect or MSA. What this one is about? Yeah, this is about, for instance, Tobis, because we have dictionary of Moroccan dictionary. You can check that Tobis. You have the MSA translation, and it says that it is a noun. The origin of this word comes from French, etc. This is kind of applications you can develop. You can combine between all of this. This is what we have seen here. If you want, from the architecture, you develop your applications or your application by calling or combining all what you have here. So this is an example of a combination. So you provide a sentence, the sentence is parsed, and then you give word by word, you can see the morphological analysis of this word. This is another application we have developed to extract the keywords. So here we gave to this application the content of الاتجاه المعاكس. So it was about information about the coronavirus when it just appeared at the beginning. We gave it the whole corpus, and you can see here that it extracted the keywords. So you can see دواء, إعلان, سنوات, مؤامرة, فايزر, علماء, مليون. So you can see those are the keywords that are used within this corpus. And this is done only by calling different different tools we have inside the framework. Now, give you some ideas about the fourth release we are working on. So Safar, we have a list of things that we would like to do. The split into Maven modules, the availability as web API, and different others. This is mainly a re-engineering of the work, because now it has grown too much that it needs some re-engineering to be able to follow the trends, to give the possibility to developer to use Maven modules, etc. We are facing the problem of hosting. So you guys, if you have any interesting idea about how to host the API, I'm much interested to talk with you, please. So here you have the Maven modules. It's not necessary then to download all Safar, but you can download only the part that you are more interested in. You still can download everything, but if you want to download any one part of it, you can. This is the new version of the website, but developed as web services. So you can see here that, for instance, you type something, but you can also use it either Python or in JavaScript, etc. So you can use any language now to be able to have access to the services that you have, and it is provided either as a web application or also as a mobile application. Okay, so now comes the most important part that we have started with at the beginning: how we can boost a language using frameworks, right? So this is an example where you see it is much important to group all the effort that have been done within after 1 decade or 2 decades, or if you want to start from now from scratch, it's important to have the concept of framework and to group everything inside to give the opportunity to others to use and take advantage of what has been done so far. So they are important step towards standardization, resolution of interoperability issues, reusability and integration of all development efforts in the field of language processing. The frameworks have significantly changed the way language technology applications are designed and developed. So can you imagine now someone developing NLP or AI without the use of frameworks, without NLTK, without OpenNLP, without these different libraries? It is really important, and I mean we take this for granted because it provides faster development. And it has all the frameworks have proven their usefulness for the English language, while for the other languages, as I told you before, if you see Europe is doing a great job about what they call European language grid, because they are aware that without the use of platform frameworks, without the use of a grid, language technology cannot be boosted. If you want to boost it, you need to have these libraries. Arabic language, as I said, has been taken as a case study. I forgot also to say that we have integrated not only the tools, but also the machine learning or deep learning tools if you want to, if you need them, because let me go back. Yeah, if you see here, you have at the utilities layer, we have already integrated some machine and deep learning tools. So for instance, HMM, some language model, Liebenstein, Weka, and also fast text. We can integrate many others, and this helps developer to boost and to develop much faster than without using them. Yeah, we have started with Moroccan dialect. It is considered, of course, for the moment as a low resourced language, but I do advise everyone, I mean, to work and to focus all our efforts within frameworks. Could be this one or any other one, but it really helps development of NLP in general. So as I said before, rich resourced languages have plenty of framework, especially the English language. For the low resourced language, so either you have no frameworks, as I said, for instance, for the case of Amazigh language, or very few components, and much of them are integrated in frameworks. So for instance, if you take the case of Gate or Stanford, they have some Arabic tools, but I mean, this happens only when one PhD student goes there, develops something, they put it inside, but there is no maintenance of the system, there is no reuse, there is no upgrade, etc. While if we focus on one framework, I mean, it is important so everyone can, I mean, participate as let's say a crowd central point of development. So we recommend to boost language technology following the same process. So first of all, compile all existing components and then group them within a framework. Avoid developing redundant components, and make enough marketing also to let others know that you are the central point. So you need to, if you decide to go integrate your tool somewhere, or you decide to have your own framework, it is important to put, I mean, enough marketing about it, to talk about it, so others can follow the idea and enhance or integrate as much components as possible in order to make it much bigger. I think I don't have anything. I don't know if I'm respecting the time. Okay, I think I'm done here. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you very much, Professor Karim, for the rich presentation. And it's actually very detailed, and we have learned a lot from you. And apparently you have so many questions. Everyone is very interested in your presentation. So if I may start with the very first one, which is, how can one concretely contribute to Safar, and what are the ways that you see important and need to be prioritized?
Right, thank you. Yes, as I said before, we are open. Anyone that would like to contribute. So, I mean, before it, we did have the problem of Java, but now I know you guys, you prefer to much work with Python. So today it is open, fortunately, because we are providing it as a REST API. I mean, just get in touch with me and you can participate. Yeah, very simple. And also anyone, okay, maybe I need to show you somewhere something interesting. Let me share the screen quickly. Okay, so if you see here, if you go to, I think acknowledgement. People, if you go to people, you can see everyone that have participated. So anyone participating would have the name, would be part of the license, etc. So it is open to anyone. I don't know if you have more, I mean, you would like to know more about this, I mean, but that's the answer.
Thank you very much, Professor. So for question number 2, is there still room for traditional machine learning in NLP, or is deep learning now the way to go?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Is there still room for traditional machine learning in NLP, or is deep learning now the way to go?
Okay. Yeah, interesting question, because I can see even not only machine learning, but also the rule-based approach. Now it's like, because everyone in the world is working with deep learning, so it's like we know only, we can do nothing as with machine learning or nothing as with the rule-based approach. It depends on your problem. It's not necessary to use always the deep learning approach. It depends on the problem, right? So also pay attention. I'm really advising you to read, get registered, please, with Communications of ACM. You would see that even if you know Yvon Lequin, who is the pioneer of deep learning, and also Joshua, I don't remember, from University of Montreal, those two that have that are the pioneers of deep learning, they say in one of the papers of Communications of ACM, what's beyond machine and deep learning? Deep learning is not the end of the world. Deep learning now it's, everyone is working with deep learning, which is fine. I'm fine with this, but pay attention. Don't just jump to deep learning because everyone is working with it. I mean, we still have room for machine learning if the data you are processing is it's enough to work with machine learning. Sometimes it's enough to work with the rule-based approach. And I can, I mean, if I had time, I can show you this. Sometimes it's really much easier to work with the rules. And also, deep learning is not the end of the world. Read, please, one of the latest papers of Yvon Lequin and Joshua, talking about the problems we are facing with deep learning. Deep learning is fine, but it has their own limits. We have to think about what's beyond and consider also always different approaches. Don't jump towards deep learning.
Thank you very much for the wise words. So the third question is more of a political question, I see. How can a researcher in Morocco develop advanced deep learning techniques without having the same financial and computational capabilities of big companies?
Yeah, I mean, we are facing the same problem in our university. So, I mean, I understand. Yeah, something maybe, I mean, it's not the question to ask as an individual, but then, yes, I mean, MoroccoAI is maybe an interesting platform where we can discuss how we can help each other to find the solution. I know in CNRST, they do have some platforms, but I don't know really how accurate is it, how fast is it, but it is something that you can consider in addition to, for instance, Heroku or some others. When you have some, you can have something for free, but I mean, that's the situation. I mean, if you want to have something more interesting, you need to give your work to Amazon or to Google or whatever, unless we open the floor within our the platform of MoroccoAI, for instance, to try to help each other to fix this problem.
Hopefully that's our goal, inshallah.
Yeah.
So for question number 5, how much of Arabic NLP is currently being adopted in industry in MENA region, for instance?
Good question. Listen, what I can say, I think, okay, historically speaking, Safar was doing a very interesting job before in the first part of, I mean, before this century. He had very interesting applications, not only basic layers, but then I think what has been done so far, we have suffered developing only the infrastructure, the basic layers. I'm not much aware of if applications are now used by either companies or either by governments. But what I know is that, for instance, Google and these large big companies are using their own data, but because, you know, with machine learning or deep learning, it's only a question of having access to the data. So simply develop your data, you're going to have your application. And Google has focused, if you remember, Google had their own office in Egypt, but they decided to close their offices all over the world and to keep most of them in the US and only part of them around the world, not to rely always on the fact to be present in this country. So that's why they are using statistical applications, and they don't want to rely on the availability of linguists or annotators or whatever. So they are developing, I mean, I'm saying this because in machine translation, they are relying on their own data. They are paying people to give them the annotation and they are doing the job. But in the MENA region, I think mainly, maybe Saudi Arabia are doing something, but I'm not aware of any application in, if there is something, it will be in the Khalij region. So either in Saudi Arabia or in United Arab Emirates, but I'm not aware of already application. I'm sorry, I don't have all the knowledge about this.
All right, thank you very much. That's already more than enough. So for another question, as I said, a lot of people are very interested in your work, so you have a lot of questions. Just bear with us. There is, what are the tools and resources offered by Safar for Darija?
Okay, so let's go back to the slide. So we have developed 3 lexicons and 1 corpus, and we have 2 tools. So if I remember the question was about the tool, but of course, consider also the lexicon and corpora because they are important to help you develop. So I think one of the most important, you have, of course, the dictionary, Moroccan dictionary, containing 12,000 words with their counterpart in Arabic, Moroccan Arabic. You have Moroccan vocabulary containing 4 million words or tokens. This is much important because it contains almost all what we say in Darija, almost, as I said.